Buddy, and welcome to the Atheist Experience, sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. I'm today's guest host, Jeff D. Matt Dillahunty is out today. Today's co-host is Ashley Perrien.
Evening, everybody.
The longtime viewers will probably recognize both of us, as we have both been hosts of this show in the past. Ashley more recently than me. We are live May 7, 2006. This is International Reason Day. Happy Reason Day, everyone. Happy Reason Day, Ashley. Reason Day is a response to the National Day of Prayer. It's the day when everybody thinks about what a good idea it is for stuff to make sense. You can catch rebroadcasts of the show on Tuesdays from 4:30 to 6. The Atheist Community of Austin is a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings on 11:30s at Sunday mornings at, we don't have a location now.
Yes.
It was Romeo's.
Yes, we are still meeting. We just don't have the reservation for the
Romeo's.
We are still meeting there.
1500 Barton Springs Road, except for the third Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series. This month's lecturer is Mark Lowy, who will be speaking on muon-catalyzed nuclear fusion. ACA Happy Hour is at Ninfa's on 183 every Thursday night at 7:30. The ACA also hosts an internet audio show, The Nonprofits, of which I am the host, every other Saturday from 2 to 3:30 on freethoughtradio.com. For more information, you can call our voicemail at 512-371-2911 or visit the website www.atheist-community.org. This is a live call-in show. We'll be putting the phone number up there in a bit. But first, we'll go to Ashley, who's going to start us off with some news.
Okay. All right, got a few stories here. First one, everybody remembers a couple of years back when the Da Vinci Code book first came out.
Oh, do I ever.
And the lather that they worked themselves up into over that one. It's happening again now that the movie is due out in, I think, a week or so.
Pretty soon.
It's relatively soon that the movie is actually going to be coming out with Tom Hanks and everything. They're getting themselves all up into a tizzy about it again.
They?
Christians. Mostly the Catholics, I think, in general, but I think all of them are having issues of some kind. The Vatican, starting with, they have actually, the number 2 down from the Pope has just told everyone completely stay away from it. The movie should be banned. It should not be played at all. No one should go see it because of the lies and mistruths it tells. I believe in...
How ironic.
A South Korean group has called for an outright ban. They don't want the movie showing in South Korea, period. Not just don't go see it, but don't even show it.
Because why? I mean, sure.
Especially in South Korea.
Here's some people that think that X happened, and here's a movie that says, oh no, Y happened. What is the big freaking deal?
Exactly. How many movies are not about that? Taking some idea in reality and just changing it a little bit.
But, yeah.
Even if you think that some of the stuff is based on reality anyway, which most of it isn't.
Right.
So it's myths about myths. The Anglican Church in Sidney, Australia, has produced a short commercial to air in cinemas before the film that tells what it's calling the truth about Jesus. So here's a little disclaimer.
They can prove all this, right?
Exactly.
Do you remember a news story a while back about a guy in Italy who was suing a priest, saying, "Oh, this, you're teaching all this stuff about Jesus, but you can't, you and your church can't prove any of it, and so it's basically fraud."
Exactly.
Right? That's not the exact name of the charge in Italy, but essentially
very close to it.
He's saying you're lying to people for money.
Yeah.
Well, he lost that suit. It was thrown out, and interestingly, not on the basis that the church could, in fact, prove any of the stuff that it had to say. It was thrown out on some other technical reasons. But now he has taken his suit to the European Union Court of Human Rights, I think.
Wow.
So that's not over yet, and maybe he'll actually get a hearing there.
It would be interesting to hear what happens to that. I can't believe it ever actually amounting to pretty much anything.
That's Europe, man. Europe is way
True.
different from the United States.
True. So we'll see, but that would be interesting. Other people who are trying to figure out, what do we do about this?
We can't kill them anymore. What do we do? We cannot kill heretics. We can't string them up or torture them anymore. Now what?
What can we do now? The UK's top Catholic prelate for Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor has basically said, it's a movie. Who cares? Go see it. Basically,
Healthy attitude at last.
Exactly. They've got the idea that you can go see it. It's up to you to decide. It's just a movie. And if you can use this as an opportunity to talk about your faith, all the better.
See, note Europe.
Yes, exactly. And I would actually agree with that.
Oh,
I
sure,
mean, if you want to
absolutely.
go see it, go see it. It's a movie.
Hey, I would say the same thing to an atheist who wanted to go see Passion of the Christ.
Exactly, which we did.
Which we did. We didn't ban it. We didn't say,
Exactly.
how dare you show this,
We didn't get into a
this
tizzy about
fantasy
it.
story in American theaters. We'll have to buy an ad
Exactly.
to go in front of the movie to tell you the true story of Jesus. We didn't do any of that. Not that we could necessarily afford it, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
wouldn't have even if we could, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah. What he's saying is, we're not calling for boycotts or protests. Our view is that it's up to the people to decide if they want to see the film.
Cool.
So that's a good
Have
one.
you read that book?
No, I haven't.
I have read the book. It's okay.
Are you planning on seeing the movie?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Anything that annoys Christians that much, I pretty much feel an obligation just so I can report on it.
That's true.
Which is pretty much what,
Yeah.
the reason why I went to see Passion of the
Passion.
Christ was so
Yeah, give a movie review.
not many of us non-believers were going to go see that, so I needed to be able to report.
What I do like, though, is a prominent cardinal has said the filmmaker should make it clear the plot is fiction, not fact, he said. But the group thinks both the movie and the book present an opportunity to engage Britons in discussion, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, for those of you out there who are believers watching our show who do not understand why we think this is incredibly ironic, right? This is an organization called the Church
Yeah.
complaining that this other thing is not being billed as fiction. We think what the Church has to say is fiction.
Yeah.
Hence the irony.
Yeah. So that's a strange one, trying to put something in there saying, this is fiction, not fact. Well, I'd claim it's all fiction. So,
That's hilarious.
though that line actually, now I'm thinking about it, technically is correct. The plot of the movie is fiction. It's not fact. It's
as far
ignoring
as I
the
can
other
tell.
half of the story.
As far as I can tell, it's fiction.
So, yeah, I mean,
Apparently the author at some point said something to the effect that he thought that it was historically accurate.
Yeah.
I think he's backpedaled from that, but I'm not sure how much and how sincere he is in that. But just suppose he really did think it was historical,
yeah.
right? Well, then you'd have one kind of person saying, we think this is fiction. And another kind of person, admittedly just the one guy, saying, saying, we think this is factual.
yeah.
Now, do questions of fact and fiction get resolved by the numbers of people that believe either way?
Not necessarily.
Well, no. I mean, that's not the way that research ought to get done. It's not a question of votes. It's a question of quality of scholarship. So if they want to take, if the church people want to establish that their Jesus character really existed and didn't have a kid, as is charged in the Da Vinci Code, unless I just gave it away, then what they can do is they can win the Luigi Cascioli's lawsuit in the European Union
Exactly.
about
He
his
actually
charge.
died.
His charge that, in fact, they can't prove anything that they have to say about Jesus. And that would be the way to resolve that, by actually trotting out the scholarship and having it actually resolved, not by going
Court of public opinion.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Cool.
So-
What else you got?
All right. Change now to something a little bit slightly more off the wall.
Oh man,
It's a fun
do we have anything on the wall?
Slightly later on,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
But for right now, Scientologists.
Oh man.
Always a fun group to play with. In Clearwater, Matt Fleischbach believes he has superpowers. He senses
hey.
danger faster than most people. He leaps over tall buildings. Actually, that's not in here, but he appreciates beauty more deeply than he used to. He says he outperforms his peers in the money management industry. He heightened his powers of perception in 1995 when he went to Los Angeles and became the first and so far only public Scientologist to take a highly classified Scientology program called Superpower.
There's a movie about him coming out pretty soon, too.
Yeah.
Where he's been away for a few years, and he flies back from Krypton in his red, yellow, and blue costume and saves the world.
Stops trains and stuff. Apparently, this program has been under wraps for decades in Scientology.
I wonder why. If I was a big organization and I had a program where we claimed we taught people how to have superpowers, I'd probably keep it secret, too.
But it's now being prepped for rollout in Scientology's massive building.
That's where we part company, because I would probably just stop doing it.
Exactly. In downtown Clearwater. It's the only place in the world where you're going to be able to take this. No big surprises there.
Go on.
The key aim of Superpower is to enhance one's perceptions, and not just the 5 senses we all know about. Hearing, sight, taste, touch, and so on. Scientologist founder L. Ron Hubbard taught that people have 57 preceptics.
What?
57 preceptics, which I've never actually heard that before. But anyway,
that means senses?
I assume so, yes. Some
Why
form
57?
of sense. I guess I couldn't come up with 58.
I'm thinking, you've heard of Heinz 57 steak
Yes,
sauce,
of
right?
course.
I think that was probably an early Scientology product where it was designed to tingle all 57 of your preceptics.
They're trying to get that number filtered into the lingo now, so we'll accept this when it comes out. It's not 5, it's actually 57. They include the ability to discern relative sizes. This is larger than that. That's a sense. Blood circulation. Balance.
Whoa, blood circulation is a sense?
Exactly. I can sense whether it's going up or down or something like that. Balance.
Well, so balance is kind of a sense. We do talk about people's sense of balance.
But it's still touch. It's still a form of touch.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to go with the Scientologists on this one, because it's an inner ear mechanism, right, versus surface of the skin.
Whatever.
Compass direction. Just because somebody is full of shit doesn't mean they're completely full of shit.
Compass direction. Apparently we have some kind of innate sense to tell north from south and things like that.
I'm not sure that's ever been established in human beings.
I don't think so. It wouldn't completely surprise me.
There are animals
because
that can do that.
Many animals can tell things like that. And so theoretically...
but theoretically, it's possible to have
true.
have bullets bounce off your skin if your skin was tough enough. It just doesn't happen.
True. Temperature, gravity, and an awareness of importance and unimportance.
Sense of balance as a separate thing from sense of gravity?
Apparently, yes. The two go hand in hand.
Okay.
But anyway. Superpower uses machines, apparatus, and specially designed rooms to exercise and enhance a person's so-called perceptics. These machines include an anti-gravity simulator and a gyroscope-like apparatus that spins a person around while blindfolded to improve perception of compass direction. So apparently that old pin the donkey on the tail, pin the tail on the donkey thing.
Anytime somebody blindfolds me and spins me around, it actually harms my sense of compass direction.
Exactly, but they're claiming that maybe now you can tell, that way is north.
Golly.
Hubbard promised superpowers would improve perceptions and put the person into a new realm of ability. He believed that it would unlock abilities needed to spread Scientology across the planet.
Because you really need to know which direction is north in order to successfully spread Scientology.
Well, if Utah's to the north, you don't need to go there. just go to the south then. So it can help. It's geared towards creating a more competent spiritual being. I'm not dependent on my physical body.
Wait, which of these senses have anything to do with spirits?
Is there a sense
of detecting the presence of ghosts?
Kinesthesia is on there, and can't remember exactly.
Kinetics is like physical motion. I don't think that's supernatural.
Okay.
Callers can correct us later.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've heard that. I can't remember offhand exactly what that is. But yeah, I mean, all of these appear to be pretty much just things that we can already sense. It's
So
just,
what does that have to do with spirituality? I don't get that either. And I have to comment, as a superhero role-playing game designer, I actually went through the process of breaking down senses into categories and writing rules about how to create superhero characters for a game who can detect all kinds of crazy, wacky things. But it never occurred to me to like divide
just go into Scientology.
To divide existing senses up into like weird subcategories.
Hey, maybe this will be a list you have to look into.
I may have to
Scientologists as a role-playing game.
See what's there.
The endocrine states, very important to know.
Endocrine states is
Endocrine
a sense?
states, apparently yes. So there's a whole bunch.
Oh, well, I love this one. Awareness of awareness. Because you don't want to sense something and then not know that you're sensing it.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. So, and of course, as with anything in Scientology, basically, it's one of those, we need your money thing. And so apparently that's maybe why Tom Cruise, I think it is, and
various other nitwits.
Exactly, are doing so well. They're all actually, modern day superheroes. So anyway, they're out there again, and I'm sure it's not a cheap course to take. So, wow. But that's basically all the news that I have.
Well, I have one more thing.
Okay.
This is an interesting story from California. A county social services department cannot be required to accommodate the belief of an evangelical Christian that he must share his faith with clients and others on the job, according to a federal appeals court on Monday. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said the constitutional duty of the Tehama County Agency to avoid entangling itself in religion outweighs the constitutional right of Daniel M. Berry to promote his religious views on the job. That decision upheld a previous one by U.S. District Judge Lawrence K. Carlton in Sacramento. It was a rebuff to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which had authorized Berry to sue. The federal agency said Berry should be allowed to discuss religion with receptive clients and display a Spanish-language Bible and Happy Birthday Jesus sign in the cubicle where he counsels his clients. Writing for a unanimous 3-judge appellate panel, Judge Consuelo Callahan said, quote, "The department's clients seek assistance from Mr. Berry in his capacity as an agent of the state. Accordingly, they may be motivated to seek ways of ingratiating themselves with Mr. Berry, or conversely, they may seek reasons to explain a perceived failure to assist them." So he's saying, what the judge is saying is, this is a state employee. He's there to help the clients. If the clients think that they have to become fundamentalist Christians like he asks them to in order to get the full help that they need, that is a violation of the separation clause by the state. Or if his clients happen to be atheists and they get bad service or perceive that they got bad service from this state employee, they may come back and say, this guy, because he's a fundamentalist Christian, is prejudiced against me, and that's why I didn't get good service. So that's awfully interesting. And I know there's a lot of other challenges concerning the rights of people to proselytize in the workplace, in private business, but I don't off the top of my head remember the outcomes of any of those things.
I'm not sure of any typical outcomes. I would expect that, again, it's more up to the business owner and manager to decide those type of things, because it would depend on the kind of business as to what's allowable and what's not.
Right.
But if you're a very religious owner of a business and your employees want to have their prayer meetings, in the middle of lunch rush hour or whatever.
Right.
If you don't mind them doing that, I don't
It's
see any
certainly not a separation clause issue.
Exactly,
It's a private
exactly, because
business.
it's not the state.
Now, my wife and I went to a little sandwich place a couple of days ago where we have occasionally encountered Christian stuff in the past, but this time there was a stack of these little printed out like coloring book pages.
Okay.
And they were there for the customers to take and for their kids to color in. There were some crayons there, right? And the picture was of this big, heavy-set bearded figure, which I assume was God and not Jesus, because usually when you see the heavy-set bearded guy in
That's
a
God.
robe, that's God, and the skinny bearded guy in a robe is Jesus. He's like looming over a picture of the Earth, and there's a big heart around the Earth, and there's a caption that says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only bloody, bloody, blah." So my wife and I took, because we were offered these things by the restaurant, we took copies to our table and some crayons, and I left a little additional comment on the picture saying, "Believe in me or I will have you tortured." And Manda wrote all kinds of other similar things all over hers. And on the back of mine, I wrote, "Please don't preach at me while I'm eating." Now, this is not a legal issue. I'm not saying those guys broke any laws. I am saying that a restaurant that is prepared to cater especially to Christian customers needs to be aware that not all customers are Christian or are going to take it at all kindly to being reminded that there's this big cult in the United States that goes around telling one another that folks like us deserve to be tortured forever just because we're not part of the club.
Yeah.
So I hope they got that message.
Yep. They're legally entitled to have those flyers and to hand them out and everything.
Legally entitled.
We are legally entitled
not,
to say, sorry, we're not going to do business with you.
I'm thinking not a wise decision. Now, speaking of other unwise things that Christians are doing in our culture, what was the Thursday, I believe, right?
Yes.
Thursday was the National Day of Prayer, an incredibly illegal activity that is conducted annually here in the U.S. It was started by an act of Congress, and basically it's a big organized government prayer fest on a particular day, and it's there are those who will claim that this is non-sectarian, but in fact, the organization that manages the National Day of Prayer these days is run by the wife of James Dobson, who operates an outfit called Focus on the Family, which is a right-wing, fundamentalist Christian political action group. And so it's no surprise to hear many, many, many horror stories from people who are not fundamentalist Christians finding themselves excluded from the National Day of Prayer. And even if it happened that the people running the National Day of Prayer were liberal Christians who let in, Muslims and Jews and Hindus and Satanists if they wanted to pray on that day, even if all those groups were involved, there's atheists. And we're excluded because, we don't have anything to pray to. So every year we protest this. Now, last year the groups, the praying people, who are mostly consisted of kids bussed into the Capitol building in school buses, gathered on the south steps of the Capitol building and sang their Christian songs, and we were outside the gate at the street protesting that. And this year, they were actually inside the building. But we were there protesting anyway, and we have some images. Can we have our images from the first image from the National Day of Prayer protest? There we are. That was early in the day. We got up to more people than that before we were done. That's the Capitol in the background, and standing closest to us in black is Joe Zamecki, who's our a member of the ACA and organized this whole thing. Did an excellent job. Can we go to the next one? Pardon me? Chuck, you helped organize it too? Sorry, Chuck. There's a bunch of us with our signs. I don't know if you can read that. I see National Day of Hypocrites. I see. I can't read the other ones, but maybe you can at home. That's me in the funny hat. And there's Joe Zamecki and his partner with their signs. Freedom is the distance between church and state. At least religious freedom is. At one point, boy, it's really hard to make out, but there was a group of prayers entering through the gate there on the far side of our little protest. And there's a group of them waiting on the steps of the Capitol building, waiting for their turn to go in and pray to Jesus inside our government building in a nation that supposedly is neutral on the question of what religion, if any, people ought to have. And one real high point of the event was a visit by Thomas Van Orden, who organized the lawsuit against the Ten Commandments monument on our state capitol building grounds. He came by to say hello, and that was cool. Of course, we had a number of reactions to our protest, pro and con. Lots of positive honking from cars going by, though. I think a certain percentage of those will have to say we're not sure if that's support or not, because they might have just been being friendly. But we also had people come up right to us on the sidewalk and talk, and they were about equally split from those who actually stopped. They're about equally split between those who had a lot to say in favor of what we were doing and those who had a lot to say against it. There was one particular guy, we don't have any pictures of him, I'm afraid, but in a jogging suit who decided that it was important for him to suggest that because there were only a few of us out there protesting and a lot of people inside the building praying, that was proof somehow that we were in the wrong.
So mob rule.
Yeah.
Whatever most people say is the right thing.
Yeah, and of course that's not the way it works. The Constitution is on our side. So at that point, he was threatening to pray for us, and we said he didn't need to waste his time. And then he, I took a moment to explain to him, if you're talking to atheists, there's no point in playing the hell card, which is what he did, right? He praying for us so that we wouldn't burn eternally. And there's no point in playing the hell card to atheists because we don't believe in hell. To which his response was, haven't you ever heard of faith? And I was just floored. This guy is suggesting that I need to have faith that there's hell in order that he can then try to manipulate me by putting the threat of hell in front of me. No. First you prove that there's a hell. Then, if you've done that, I'll be happy to take that threat seriously. So that was exciting and one of the many social things that
the retort for that should have been funny in hindsight, obviously, but the threaten, I'll pray for you.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And
like
we're
that one
still
guy,
out here.
traditional prayer.
Exactly. That one is going to be the watershed that's going to push everything over.
Yeah.
And also we're all going to be converted.
Yeah. Ooh, I have another little bit of news here today. Today was election day in the atheist community of Austin. We elected our new board of directors for 2006. And if I could just take a quick moment here, the new president of the ACA is Matt Dillahunty, the normal host of this here TV program. The vice president is Don Baker, another frequent co-host of this show. And the board now consists of, and they will officially take office on May 17. The new board consists of Keith Burka, Chuck Clark, Don Rhodes, Mark Lowy, who's going to be our speaker on
in 2 weeks.
muon catalyzed nuclear fusion in a couple of weeks on the I don't have the date for that. And Steve Elliott, a producer of the show, the nonprofits. The Atheist Experience. Excuse me. I do the audio show so much. Joe Rhodes, engineer on the Atheist Experience, and Joe Zamecki, who organized the protest.
Yep.
And congratulations to all of them.
So,
This is a live call-in program, and so we're here to take your calls. If you have anything to say about any of the news that we have read, or any of the announcements we've made, or any of the events that we've just covered, we're happy to take your questions.
A couple of quick comments on the protest.
Yeah.
You were saying that even if all these other religions could take part, then that still leaves us out, and so we protest. Not to give the impression, obviously,
that we want in.
that
That's not the issue.
that because we can't do it, and we're a vocal minority, therefore we should shut down everybody else's fun.
Right. No. That's not the point.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know you know what you're saying.
It's basically just that this is not something that government should be promoting. If people want to get out there and have their prayers, they're more than free to do that. They can have religious freedom all they want.
Right.
But the government saying, okay, we will give up time, space, and essentially tax dollar to have you pray, and we'll take dollars from non-believers and non-prayers to help you out. That's something that is just not. I don't see it as being fair. It's not something that the government should be involved in.
For me,
yeah, it's
not even so much a
dollar.
tax issue. I don't particularly, I'm not annoyed just because my tax dollars are going to support a religion that I don't agree with, though that is a fine argument. My objection is that this is the government of our nation, and it needs to be able to govern fairly for everyone. And when it goes out of its way to make time for one viewpoint on religion, then it's not doing its job.
Yes.
Whether it was spending any money or not, it's not doing its job. It's not being a fair and equitable government for everyone.
Yeah. And somebody, I think, wrote to our email list and was talking about this, saying that currently the group that runs it is extremely Christian.
Yes,
and so
they are.
if you are a Christian group, then you can have, your speaker at the front, or, have your name listed to it. But if you're a Jewish synagogue or Muslim or whatever, then sorry, we don't need you here. That's very much against what the original intent of this was, which was just, this is for everyone who is religious. You can come and have your prayers, and it's open and free to everyone.
Right, which is, and that's why even a lot of religious organizations are against this National Day of Prayer, because they are excluded from it. In practice, they are excluded because it is dominated by only a particular flavor of Christianity. Let us go and take a call now. We've got Steve on line 1. Steve, you there?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good.
Pretty well.
Yeah, it's a good show. I enjoy watching y'all all the time.
Thank you, Steve.
I was just thinking about your comments on this National Day of Prayer. And it just struck me that your retort should have been maybe a little bit different. Is really, I think, the government, because of the data that we now have, should pass a law against the prayer on this day, because they've just proven that prayer is detrimental to the health of people who are praying.
That's true.
You're talking about that recent study which showed that there were more medical complications only among those people who were prayed for and knew they were being prayed for.
And the person who was talking to you out there when he said he was going to pray for you, you should have said right there, please don't, because I know that you're going to pray. And that would be assaulting me by doing that.
That is perhaps a good point. But I've seen enough prayer studies, pro and con, come and go, to know that that's never going to end. I mean, we have goofballs still trying to prove that the Earth is flat. We do. Not that many, but they have a website, and so it doesn't matter how definitively you prove that something is bogus, like prayer. Those people who have made it an important part of their sense of self-worth to believe that that thing is true are going to keep doing their experiments and keep claiming to come up with their positive results, forever.
They're still going to
Just
find a
look at
way to excuse the negative results and
Yeah.
say, well, that wasn't a good because it wasn't double-blind.
Yeah.
But then here's a positive study, and yes, of course, you see it. That one proves it.
Right.
So-
Look at the field of psychic research if you really
please
want to go
don't.
laugh.
Yeah.
Let's not. Yeah, but that's speaking of that, it's like some of these shows. It seems like that attitude is becoming so prevalent in the TV shows they're putting on the air nowadays.
Which attitude?
Well, the thing about the psychic and all the supernatural mumbo jumbo that's coming out with, I don't even know all the names of the shows, but I see them. I just
Is
this
that
is unbelievable.
Wit on the Sci-Fi Channel still on?
John Edwards?
John Edwards, is he still on?
John Edwards has a new show on some
good
station
grief.
that's crossing over or something, but the Sci-Fi Channel today has, I guess, a marathon of ghost hunters on it, which is just...
Well, it being on the
it's science
sci-fi,
fiction.
I don't have a
They
big
give it
problem with.
the right thing.
But it should be sci-fi. Now, if somebody wanted to come up with a crazy,
True.
goofy Tesla inventions show, at least that's scientific nonsense. Ghosts and, the reason why the Sci-Fi Channel runs all that fantasy stuff, some of which is good, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I universally hate anything with fantasy in it, but the reason why they do that is because when they first started, do you remember it was like Xena all day, every day, because that's all they could get
Xena
back in the
Hercules.
early days of that.
Well, speaking
that
of science fiction here, I've got another thing just to bounce off you, see if you know anything about this, because you started off talking about Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. And a lot of people don't seem to know that L. Ron Hubbard was a science fiction writer.
Oh, yes.
He wrote Battlefield Earth and all sorts of other things. And I had heard years and years ago that L. Ron Hubbard was a contemporary of Robert Heinlein. And Robert Heinlein wrote the book Stranger from a Strange Land. And in this, he had this thing about this person who was raised on Mars and developed a language, and that gave him these, if you will, the superhuman powers that you brought up today. And I heard from friends years ago that L. Ron Hubbard first heard about this story and said, this would be a great deal if I could invent a religion that had this stuff in here and get people to get in on this with me as the head of the religion. And here we are with Scientology now. Have you heard anything like this?
I have heard the story, but I can't comment on how accurate it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's always that famous quote, though, from Hubbard saying that if you really want to make some money, along the lines of, if you really want to get rich, start a religion.
Yeah, but I think that quote is from that story.
Okay.
Which,
Which is
it wouldn't
questionable.
surprise me at
Heinlein was,
all.
I don't know if I think he would consider himself an atheist with all the things he wrote about religions and his disbelief in it in his various books. But I don't know.
I don't know, but there are some great resources on the internet exposing the crazy shenanigans of the Scientology movement.
Oh yeah, it's it's mind-boggling what they're doing.
I
So
think,
it's real
I'm
interesting
gonna-
hearing what you were reading today.
I'm going to take a wild guess here. I think one of them is www.clambake.org. And the reason the clam reference is because apparently there's some Scientology teaching that human beings are evolved from clams.
Well, that's that evolution that y'all keep trying to talk about, right?
But not from clams. Come on. It's hard enough getting people to accept the monkey thing.
Anyway, great show, guys. I really enjoy watching you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for
Take
calling.
care.
All right. Let's...
Drop.
do I do that one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then going to Melissa on 2. Hi, Melissa.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for staying on the line.
Sure. I just have a comment and maybe a question about religion in the workplace. I work for a small business, and the owner is always sharing her religious experiences and how God's working in her life. And she knows that I'm agnostic, and she's always inviting me to church, to come to her church. That if I come to her church, it'll be the event that makes me a believer. And I was just wondering if y'all had any advice for me, or
Oh boy.
how I can kind of deal with that. Or
How important is this job to you? That's my first question.
Yeah, it's pretty important.
Okay.
And how
Well,
strongly is she in this open to just open discussion?
Actually, we have had a pretty open discussion, and I've told her, exactly how I feel, and it was a very long discussion, much longer than I was hoping it would be, and because she was the whole time was trying to convince me that to believe as she does, and I told her, just like I can't make you change the way you believe, you're not going to convince me, because actually I was a devout Catholic, and started to really think about the way I was living my life.
well, is this really, really, really difficult for you? I mean, does she make the job?
Not really. Just sometimes it becomes a little irritating. Like, not again, or do I have to listen to this again, or I don't want.
Do you have non-believer friends that you can hang out with to decompress?
Actually, I don't think I do. I don't think I have a single friend.
Well, I'll just, not to seem like, opportunistic here, but the Atheist Community of Austin is the organization that sponsors this show. And we meet every week, and it's a bunch of non-believers hanging out and spending a lot of time just sort of relaxing from the day-to-day stress of having to deal with religious people all the time.
Yeah, I thought about I definitely have to come out and...
Well, all the information is on our website, www.atheist-community.org. We'll bring that up on the screen. And also, after this show, the crew will be going to Threadgill's for dinner at 6:45.
Okay.
So
that's your advice then, just to have someone else to talk.
I mean, it does sound kind of like let's promote our group here.
Yeah.
Well, that is part of the reason we're here. I mean,
to a certain extent, though, and it is true to
we want to meet more atheists,
just like-minded folk to be around. As for advice, unfortunately, it's just a difficult situation to deal with, knowing the interpersonal relationships and stuff like that. Offer to go to her church one time if she agrees to come back and watch the show once or twice.
Or bring her to the atheist happy hour.
Yeah, you really you'll have to weigh what the pros and cons are in your own situation, and what steps would be too much.
Exactly.
You should not expect to be able to change her mind so that she'll get off your case.
Right.
Maybe you can, come up with some kind of a truce. Maybe you can lay it down for her that, you can be proselytizing to me here at the workplace, but if you ever freaking fire me, I've got a bag load of information proving that you were pressuring me with this religious stuff and I never gave in, and I'll sue your ass.
Not to be heavy-handed or anything, but
that's a kind of thing that has worked for some people. That's all I'm saying.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Y'all have a good
Thanks
night.
for calling, Melissa. And that. And on to Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I was wondering if you could, a qualitative conclusion, if you can draw a qualitative conclusion by comparison of Christianity to Islam in light of Islam's unofficial fatwa on Salman Rushdie and Christianity's lack of such a bounty on the head of author Dan Brown. In other words, don't you feel kind of glad that you live in a Christian-oriented, not really even a theocracy, versus living in a nation like a Sudan or?
And I think I think a big reason why there is that different in reaction, Christians aren't blowing up buildings over this or anything like that, is in large part because it's been in a culture, both in Europe and the U.S., where other religions are accepted, if not promoted. And so you have this open dialogue and exchange of ideas to where everything is tempered to a certain extent. Nothing goes blaring out of control. Whereas in many Islam countries, that is the religion and no other dissenting opinion is allowed.
Right. They're not. It's not so much.
Therefore, it can spiral out of control. And
yeah.
if the U.S. were like that, I think the stories would be different if, they said, look, this is a Christian nation. We are a, Protestant, 18th century Reformed, sect of Christianity, and no dissenting opinion is allowed.
And
it would
then
also
the
spiral.
Da Vinci Code came out.
Exactly, and then it spiraled. Yeah.
Right. So what we're saying is, it looks to us like the difference is not so much in the inherent nature of the religions, but in the cultures in which those religions are practiced. In the West, where there's a lot of Christianity, there is a lot of rubbing shoulders between people of all different religious beliefs, and we've already been through and dealt with and accepted the fact that it is not acceptable for people of one religion to call for the deaths of people of another religion in our culture. Whereas in the Islam, where we're hearing those kinds of calls from, are nations where Islam is the only religion. They don't have that tempering of having to coexist with people of other religious beliefs all the time. Now,
so in a way, don't you feel like, I guess, fortunate that you live in a nation that is kind of a melting pot of different religions, even if you don't particularly ascribe to any of those beliefs? Aren't you glad that you live in a nation that is a melting pot, whereas you haven't pared away all the religions down, to whittle them down to just one more enemy?
I'll say I don't mind. Is that okay? I would like to think, though I can't prove this, I would like to think that if all humans wised up and just did away with religion, that kind of problem would go away, and we wouldn't have, the equivalent of Muslim extremism only with atheists. I'd like to think that, but I can't prove it, so I'm not going to make that claim.
Okay.
I am content living in a place where people who are Christians aren't allowed by our culture to come and kill me because they have to get along with people of all different kinds of beliefs.
Okay. I have one more point I want to make, and I want to hog the airway, but okay. I made this point earlier last year, but I kind of urge you, the atheist community, to declare atheism a religion. I know it goes against what you believe, but I've said that if you say that your God is no God, then that kind of, in other words, you beat them by joining them. That way they can never come at you and say, there's a them. It's us and them. They can say, hey, it's another religion. They just happen to know, so you would be legally free.
Yeah.
In other words, for an example, 0 is a number. It's a whole number.
Yeah.
Yeah, but bald is not a hair color.
What was that, sorry?
Bald is not a hair color, and that to us seems like a more accurate analogy for atheism versus...
Bald is a hairstyle. It's not a hair color, it's a hairstyle.
Right, but hair, right? Religion is hair, and hair color is your particular religion. But if you don't have one, then that's like being bald. You don't have a hair color because you don't have any hair.
You mean all levels?
I can see that we're going to keep going around and around on this analogy.
Analogies break down. Let's drop that one.
If you didn't get it, let's just move on.
Okay, I understand.
But no, we've had several different people kind of promote that idea, and I can see the benefits of it in terms of legal arguments and things like that. You would have certain advantages. I guess part of my idea against that is it's more a matter of principle than just a matter of politics. Yes, we would have a certain benefit by claiming that we're a religion and therefore we're being discriminated against and therefore we can have, more successful legal battles or something like that. But the principle is that not that government should be fair to all religions, it's that it shouldn't promote religion in any way. Whether you call atheism religion or not, it shouldn't promote atheism over anything else. It should just be completely oblivious to it. And so on a matter of principle, I would say that we shouldn't call ourselves a religion. Yeah. But again, I've heard it both ways. So.
Yeah, and I've heard atheists make basically the same argument you're making, Mike. So
several times.
I think that's an ongoing discussion.
Okay, do you mind if I make one more question?
Okay, quick, and then we're going to answer you off the air, okay?
Okay.
Move on.
You believe in postmortem destinations. Do you deny the possibility that there might be an afterlife?
Do I deny the possibility that there might be an afterlife?
That is
No.
cloaked from our perception, just easily by anybody who is in charge of the afterlife, just because it would be, as I said, an easy ride or a devastating blow to our antiquated system. When Jack Nicholson was telling Dennis Hopper about UFOs.
Okay, goodbye.
What?
Okay.
Do I deny the possibility of afterlife? No. Do I have any evidence to support it? No.
Joe!
Ashley and Jeff.
Hi, Joe. It's Joe
How you doing?
Zamecki, everybody.
Yes, Joe Zamecki. And I organized that picket on Thursday, and I want to say thank you very much to everybody who came out.
And thank you, Joe, for
hosting.
For putting that together.
And
You
Chuck Clark also helped with that. He was great. And so it was a very enjoyable picket. I don't know about you. I really enjoyed it.
Did you see us showing the pictures?
Yes, I did, and I'd love to have you guys show them again if you could, if you have a few minutes. But that was a lot of fun, and everybody should be encouraged to speak their mind, because this is America, and we're better. There you go. So a couple other things. By the way, we're going to have, the atheist community of Austin, are going to have a booth at the Austin Gay and Lesbian Pride Festival.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Saturday, June 10 at Waterloo Park. And that runs from noon till 8 p.m. And an atheist booth, that's where we're going to be handing out information in the form of free pamphlets and pens and stuff, and talking to people about atheism.
And we've been there every year, right?
For several years now.
I mean, since we started, it's several years now.
Yeah. Well,
Because
it's a lot of fun to get out
if there's any segment of our community that really, really, really is getting dumped on by religion right now, it's gay people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd like to let them know that there is another way of looking at things.
And I can identify with them because, yes, also there has been a poll, a survey done recently showing that people are really down on atheists in America. And it was
Yeah.
a pretty scientific poll.
What did we do?
No,
We didn't do anything. Leave us alone.
I don't feel bad. And anyway, a lot of times we hear from Christians, well, you atheists, there's only a handful of you, compared to how many Christians and how much clout and money are on the side of the churches. Don't you think you're wrong because of that? And what I would say is, how many people started Christianity exactly?
Right.
One person, right?
Yeah.
Or 13, depending how you want to look at it.
Yeah, but either way.
Without that one person.
But you know, that's an excellent point, Joe. And the other thing I like to say to people that would try to play that statistic game on me is they don't want to go there because, according to actual statistics of religious adherence across the world, compiled by the United Nations, if you take fundamentalists at their word when they say that Catholics are not true Christians, then there are more atheists and other types of non-believers around the world than there are Christians. This is a statistical fact.
Exactly. And every time they say, well, those Christians aren't real Christians, that could apply to a billion people maybe, and pretty soon we're in the vast majority.
Exactly.
Right. But we don't even go there. They're the ones that keep bringing that kind of argument up. We don't go there because we know that's not how the truth gets established. It's
Right, the
not
popularity-
subject to vote.
The popularity of an idea is not what is going to enable us to gauge accurately whether that idea is correct or not.
Right.
Exactly.
Just whether there's evidence supporting it. Well, Joe, thanks very much for your call. We may go back and show the pictures again. And if you want to, gosh, I don't know.
Whatever.
I'll tell you what. If the show slows down, we'll do that, and you call back in, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
See you,
y'all.
Joe.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye. And we got Lance on line 2. Lance?
Hey guys, what's up?
Good. How are you?
Hey, well, not too bad. Appreciate your show. You know, Christians should appreciate your show because it's it's a challenge to critical thinking. And being a Christian myself, it's great to have this balance to where someone can
Okay.
if I'm going too far in something that's dogma, then I can be challenged on it.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that, whatever you're into. But anyway, you know how within Christianity there's a popular belief about a subject, but then there's, like, most of us will believe something, and then there'll be these splits here and there. People say, no, it's more Christian to think this way. In other words, some people will say, well, the Christian thing is to just open the borders. And some people will say, no, the more Christian thing is to do blah, 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 X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
What is the atheist view of this? I mean,
Are we talking specifically immigration?
Yes, because it is such such a public topic right now. What is the overall atheist view of what should be done about immigration?
Oh, there's not one.
Damn.
Because atheism is the lack of belief in a God. Bang, we're done. That's it. That's all there is. Okay? There's nothing in that says what we should do about immigration.
Oh, okay.
The one thing that it says is that when we decide what we should do about immigration, gods don't enter into the question. That's all that atheism says about it.
Okay, well, I thought since maybe you guys saw the same on that, you'd see similar on other things.
Sometimes, yeah, but there's a lot of differences among atheists because because that's all that there is to atheism is that one little thing.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if in our group there weren't some dissenting opinions about, whether immigration should be this way or that way, or whether abortion should be this way or that way, or whatever.
Yeah, because I noticed that even within the Patriot movement down there at Access, which I know a lot of those guys, I thrust myself into that scene. I differ with almost everybody down there. We all seem to differ and argue with each other over it. Even though most of us claim Christianity, it's a weird thing, man. That it's like, well, I guess what it is, we're all trying to figure out what the right thing to do is.
Right.
What the most Christ-like thing to do is.
Us atheists, when we pat ourselves on the back for how cool it is to be an atheist, what we are, our perspective is, and the reason why we think we're being cool to look at things this way is we never muddy the issue with what some supernatural greater being might want. We look purely at what are the actual pros and cons.
Yeah.
Right?
Ones.
Yeah, that's it. We care what actually happens to actual human beings.
Yeah.
And we think that simplifies the issue and makes it easier to reach some conclusion that's going to be workable.
Well, honestly, we kind of have to live in two worlds because as a Christian and a libertarian, I have to put myself under a really strict guidelines spiritually, and it has to be for myself only. But then when it comes to politics, I have to leave. In other words, like, I want you to have your guns. I want you to have all your rights. If you want to do drugs, go at it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Completely free to do whatever you want according to man's law, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. But spiritually, very strict on. Yeah. In other words, politically, you shouldn't have to help anybody. I mean, somebody laying in the street, you step over them and keep going. You're not obliged to help them. Spiritually, you have to stop and help that person.
Yeah. But when do you start making your beliefs laws and imposing them on others? And at what point do you draw that line and say, okay, if somebody's laying on the street unconscious, you're legally obligated to help them? When do you start drawing that line to say, okay, now you're legally obligated to pray for 2 hours every Sunday?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your dilemma, Lance.
Where it splits between me and you. I am forced to do it by spiritual law. I cannot physically force you to do it by man's law. Yeah. And that's the way it should be.
Okay. We hear your opinion. Okay?
Okay, guys.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye. And next we have DJ on 3. DJ?
Hey, what's going on?
Good. What's going on with you?
Not much, man. I was talking to your producer earlier, and he couldn't seem to tell me why he believed in Julius Caesar, but not Jesus Christ. Now, you believe in Julius Caesar. You believe that he lived and he existed. And
I have no particular reason to question the existence of Julius Caesar.
Okay, so you do believe that he existed.
Not exactly what was said, but
I have no reason to question that.
Oh, okay. Well,
I do have reasons to question the existence of God.
Well, why not Julius Caesar?
Well, let's see. Is Julius Caesar supposed to have violated laws of physics by turning water into wine?
No.
No.
Who knows?
No,
nothing in the historical record that says.
I'm pretty sure
nothing in the
I'm pretty
historical
sure there were
record
people out
that
there who
says.
believed he had some kind of special power.
What?
Right?
Dude,
to some, I
hang
bet
on,
he, to some,
hang
he
on,
was a
come
god.
on.
Tell me people didn't pray to Julius Caesar.
Dude, you're right.
People didn't
There
pray
are-
to
There are
Julius
people that
Caesar?
worship Julius Caesar, but I have no reason to doubt that an actual physical guy named Julius Caesar existed.
Why?
Why do I have no reason? Why should I doubt that he existed?
Why should you doubt God existed? Or
Well,
Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, Jesus.
God's not some guy. God is this entity that violates all kinds of very well-established natural laws.
If you take the Bible literally, yeah.
Okay.
But if you take a lot of things, I mean, come on,
Are
man.
you willing to accept? Okay, let's put it this way. Assuming Jesus was just another person wandering around the desert 2,000 years ago, no special powers, no magic, no godlike, no deity, anything like that.
Yeah.
Do I think that the stories of Christianity are based on an actual person? I have questions about that, but if something came out tomorrow that said, look, we have definite proof that a guy named Jesus that Christianity is based on existed, I have no big issues with that. Now,
Yeah.
if they start saying that he is the almighty supreme ruler of the universe and cares about my sex life, that I've got questions about. But
Yeah.
just the plain existence of a dude named Jesus 2,000 years ago?
And,
Yeah.
and on the question of the
Well, can I
simple
answer him?
No, hang on. I'm going to finish this. On the simple question of the existence of a mere human being named Jesus, that this is
Exactly.
all based on, right? On that concept, I still have reason to question whether he existed, where I don't have that question with Julius Caesar, and here's why. For Julius Caesar, there are records of his existence that were written while he was alive. Those records still exist. For Jesus, the earliest records of his existence were written down decades, at least, decades, like 70 years after he was supposedly dead. Okay? Now, when there's a historical person that is documented while he's alive, that is better evidence than somebody who is not documented until many decades after he supposedly lived and died.
Yeah, that's better evidence, but it's not hardcore. You know, it doesn't really mean a lot. You know, people were different 2,000 years ago. I mean, but to, you know, put yourself in some sandals 2,000 years ago, and to say I was to come up to you and say, hey, you know, 2,000 years from now, did you know that you can be able to fly from where you're at here to 5,000 miles away in a matter of hours? Or, you know, what if I told you about nuclear bombs? Or, you know, what if I told you about space travel? Would you have believed me, or would you call me crazy like you're calling them crazy? I mean, wouldn't you think I was crazy 2,000 years ago?
You're
I would be pretty crazy,
misinformed.
wouldn't I?
I think that the right way to interpret the knowledge of somebody is that somebody, or the claim somebody makes, is in the context of the time in which they say them, right? Like there's philosophers, Greek philosophers that that came up with some really brilliant stuff that happens to be wrong, right? Because they were philosophizing from the perspective of the scientific knowledge of their day.
Like
now,
what you're
that
doing
doesn't,
right now, right?
Hang on. Now, that doesn't make them dumb guys.
No, it doesn't make
But
you
it
dumb.
also doesn't mean that they had amazing predictive powers of the future, because they didn't. In fact, they were wrong. So I think you have to, when you look at stuff like that, you have to tease apart, how brilliant was it of them to have come up with that under their circumstances versus is it really accurate? And it can be inaccurate, but still brilliant for the time.
Hey,
right?
well,
now,
I'm not a philosopher or nothing like that. You know, my parents didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up in the church. You know, I'm not perfect. I drink. I smoke weed. You know, I'm bad. I'm a bad person, but I'm not dumb. You know, and you know, religion really never meant anything to me. But have you guys ever played with a Ouija board? I mean, have you ever really actually sat down?
I haven't, but I know a few people who have.
Okay, well, you got to tell me that you can't sit here and tell me that that there's not something out there that
have you
science is never going to be able to prove it.
Have you looked into skeptical analysis of what is going on when people play with a Ouija board?
Doesn't matter. because I've
doesn't
done it. I don't have to read it if I've done it. I don't have to read it if I've done it.
At that point, I think what you're doing is you like your preconceptions and you're rejecting the possibility of learning that maybe your preconceptions are wrong. When you have that kind of attitude.
I know the Bible's not 100% true.
I'm talking about Ouija boards.
Ouija boards.
Ouija boards.
You know what I'm saying?
Dude, you brought up Ouija boards. We're talking Ouija boards now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There are psychological explanations for what is going on when people sit down with a Ouija board and seem to think that it is that supernatural forces are moving the thing around.
But
there are explanations for that, and it does matter. It does matter because if those explanations are right, then there isn't something more. Then it's just psychology.
Nah, I've seen it done on a piece of paper.
You can draw the line there and say, I don't want to learn anything more. I don't want to have my preconceptions popped, right? You can say that, but then we're going to let you go.
Later.
So thanks for your call. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Whew.
Yeah, I mean, if you come across contradictory evidence, you've got to be able to evaluate that and possibly throw out preconceived notions.
Yeah.
Possibly throw out the new evidence, whatever, but, I mean, you can't just say, nuh-uh.
Well,
I don't want to listen to that because I have my ideas.
Yeah, basically I agree. And that's what I just said, right, to the caller. But now that there's a second to sort of step back and think about it, scientists do at some point say, nah. not look, at some point you stop going back and re-examining the freaking Shroud of Turin, for example, right? Once it has been established that the thing is not as old as it needs to be to actually be Jesus' shroud, once that's been established, until there is a darn good reason to go back and reevaluate it, scientists, I think rightly, say, no, get out of my face with the freaking Shroud of Turin, for example. Just using a kind of a crackpot Christian thing. But the issue then is, the darn good reason test, right? If something were to be documented with Ouija boards that falls outside of the standard psychological, scientific, rational explanation of what's going on, that would constitute a darn good reason to go back and reevaluate.
Of course.
But until that happens, the scientific explanation stands. And you say, no, I'm not going to go back there. And we have JR on line one. JR?
Okay, I want to clarify this question.
If you have your TV on, turn it off.
Yeah. Now I want to clarify this question.
Hey, JR?
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for calling. I remember you called our show last week. I wasn't on, but I've listened to the tape. And an issue came up regarding human physiology and where we get our energy from that enables us to move around and stuff. And you asked the question, if human beings ultimately get our energy from the sun, how come we all don't drop dead at night? And the host of the show, Matt, suggested that you go educate yourself and find out what the answer to that question was.
Well, I've done that.
Do you have the answer to that question?
Well, I want to clarify some of the things that I've said regarding this question of the creation of God. Okay. If God is a being that is unlimited in time.
Wait, hold on, JR.
I'm not preaching to you. I'm just giving you
JR, hang on, man.
Okay.
There's this hanging issue of your understanding of human physiology, right? You didn't understand how it was that human beings could be alive without some supernatural guy making us move around, and you were asked by the host of the show to go educate yourself on that point. Have you done that? Do you know now what is the scientific explanation for how energy comes from the sun, gets into human beings, and we use it to help us move around?
But the question would be, how would man be able to determine what all of this existence?
Okay, we're getting some kind of weird interference with your call, JR. So, if it happens again, I guess we're going to have to let you go. But try your question one more time.
Okay. How would man be able to determine what created all of existence?
how would man be able to determine what created all of existence? Okay.
Yes.
Setting aside your use of the word created, because that seems to be loaded with an assumption that there had to be a creator, okay? But if what you're really asking is, how can man determine the explanation for the origins of our universe?
Yes.
If that's really what you're getting at, well, that's what physicists do for a living. And you should ask some physicists.
But they're only human beings.
So? So what?
Okay.
They have great big
only
super colliders where they take particles and bounce them into each other at very high speeds and analyze the results. And they have other cool instruments that they build to recreate the conditions that existed in those first few nanoseconds of the existence of our universe. And
but
it's by studying stuff like
existence
that human beings are able to get those answers that you're asking about.
How can they examine the spiritual realm?
What spiritual realm?
The realm that exists outside of physical realm.
Do you have any evidence of this spiritual realm?
Okay, the evidence now is your life.
No.
That goes back to last week.
Yeah, last week you were puzzled by the scientific explanation for how human beings can actually be alive and move around without some magical thing making us alive, okay? And you were asked by the host of the show to go and educate yourself on that question. Now, there is an answer.
Well, I don't think that
paraphrase it for you.
What I told him into
here you are back
consideration.
again. Hold on, JR. Here you are back again, not having found out what and learned and understood the scientific explanation, right? And just throwing this same claim out again that the only reason human beings are alive is because of some magical force. Now,
well, I believe in cause and effect.
Yeah.
I believe there's a reason that we all exist.
That's cause and effect is not about that kind of reason. Cause and effect is, object A with this much kinetic force runs into object B and that has that mass and it causes object B to move. I mean, that is cause and effect. When you talk about the reason why you're here, once again, you're using loaded language to try to shoehorn your God assumption in the door before you've even addressed the question.
Okay. What I was talking about before, man's intelligence can only expand so far in time. Okay, if God created time, the statement of Genesis in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, is making reference to the creation of time.
Excuse me, before we will take this whole issue of Genesis and what it says about time seriously, you're going to have to establish that Genesis is actually accurate.
And it's more than just a general book.
And you can't just say it's accurate. We don't think it is. In fact, it looks to us, based on the actual evidence in the universe around us, it looks like Genesis is not accurate. So
okay, how can you make the assumption that God was created?
What's that?
How can you make the assumption that God was created?
We don't make any assumption that God was created. Yeah. We don't believe in any God.
That was the question put on me.
Well, if you believe in a God, you're going to have to account for how it is that he exists. Right?
Well, he exists, and the proof is all around you. If
That's
you would
not,
just look at things that are man-made.
If I say, a particular brand of automobile exists, then it would be fair to ask me, well, how did that particular brand of automobile come into existence, right? That'd be a fair question for me. You are claiming that a God exists. It is fair to ask you, how did your God come into existence?
Well, that's
not
a
an
complex
assumption we're
question,
making.
But you cannot deny that man did not create the sun and the moon and the stars.
Sure, of course we don't deny that. Man did not create any of those things. So what?
Neither did the cosmos.
How do you know that? Actually, I disagree with that point. Seems to me all those things are a natural outgrowth of the interplay of natural law. scientists have answered all the basic questions of how solar systems formed.
Okay, you can debate.
Physicists are still working on those first few nanoseconds of the existence of the universe, right? And they're still working on the question of how it was that got started, right? Those are all open questions in science. But nowhere is there a big hole in our knowledge that needs to be filled by your God. Nowhere.
Well, just because you don't understand this, you should just go ahead and deny the fact that God exists.
We don't deny the fact that God exists. We deny your claim that he exists. Thank you very much for your call.
You haven't proved a single thing, and so you just saying that you can't deny it, it's everywhere. We could say, there is no God. Science proves everything. It's everywhere. Exact same way. So until you've got some evidence to back it up, we're going to dismiss it. We have scientific evidence to back up.
Right, that's the thing. That's the
cosmology.
thing. In order for us to take any claim seriously, or that would overturn vast bodies of established knowledge that human beings have painstakingly put together from observing the universe over centuries, right? In order to take some claim that throws all that stuff out the window, to take that claim seriously, you have to prove it. Period. Okay, how about Richard on 2? Richard, you there?
Hello?
Hi, Richard.
Hey, did people evolve from fish? Actually, I just wanted to let you know that your whole show is a bunch of bullshit.
Okay, thank you for your input. Hi, Steve.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Fine. I've got a couple things across the board here. Try to speak fast and see if they relate.
Okay.
As far as organized religion goes, I agree with most of the atheist point of view that organized religion is nothing more than a sick joke on people, and it's a guilt trip.
Okay.
It's used to manipulate masses of people. They all believe all kinds of things just because they want to believe, but they don't even read their own Bible that they profess to talk about, because if they did, they wouldn't say half the things they say. One problem I have with the atheist point of view, most atheists I've met are very knowledgeable on the Bible, but they're very scientific, technical, smart people. But science can never be used to predict through formulas and mathematical equations the things that atheists want it to predict, because it uses infinite numbers, pi and other things, and the computers can't generate answers looked at it in the scientific. Now, I believe science is mainly it can be used to help, it can be used to disprove whatever they want it to disprove, in this case, the existence of a God. But I'm not here to argue that with you either. I want to mention something a question I asked to a Christian person, and I'll try to make a point here and then I'll let you comment, is what happens to a 2-year-old when they walk out into the highway and get hit by a car? Do they go to heaven? Do they go to hell? What if they didn't know Jesus? What happens to that person? And most of them believe something, but they don't have an actual answer. And so I just want to relate the Bible, which I feel was an inspired book. It's not a religious book at all. It's that Christians were frowned upon as being conspiracy theorists and paganists, and they still are to this day. They just don't know it. But anyway, we are all nothing more than minerals, and we're of the earth just like animals, and we have a soul. Now, if you have a cattle, you can decide that night if that cattle is going to live or die. You have the power. And when we die, our body, we don't go to heaven, we don't go to hell. It's not what the Bible says, which I feel was an inspired work of, 17 or 20 people that got the Word of God to write this information down, and we can debate whether that's true or not. But I just want to relate this fact about what happens here. It's the soul that is kept by this God, whether you all believe it or not, but it's kept on a hard drive or wherever he keeps it, and at the end, our body, we don't go to heaven, we don't go to hell, but our souls can be resurrected by this power. If he can create these worlds and these universes, he can resurrect a soul that died into another earth, and that's what the Bible talks about. It's also a code book on what to eat and not to eat, what to wear and not to wear.
Okay, let's go point by point here.
Let me say one last
where do
thing,
we
and
begin?
I'll stop.
Yeah, you're throwing out a lot of stuff there.
Can we respond to some of this stuff, Steve?
What's that?
Can we respond to some of this stuff, please?
Yeah, let me say one thing, and then I'll shut up.
You said about 8 things, and we'd like to respond to some of them.
Okay, well, when atheism rejects God, I have a problem, but when it's used to deny the other religions, I agree. Go ahead.
When it's used to deny other religions than Christianity, you're cool with it?
Pardon me?
When it's used to deny religions other than Christianity,
when it's used to deny God, I have a problem with the denial of a God, but I do agree when y'all persecute religion and stuff because they deserve it. But go ahead.
Well, you said something. One of the first things you said was that that science isn't able to predict the things that atheists want it to predict. I wrote down your exact words.
Sure.
What things do you think atheists want science to predict
I
that
think
it can't?
deep down, most atheists really would be happy if they did find through science and math that there was a God. They would, deep down, really be happy. Just my opinion.
If science were to prove or disprove.
I don't care either way, particularly.
Well, that's fine. God made these souls, and He made your souls, and some souls He made differently.
Wait a second, though.
You said science can't prove the things that can't predict the things that atheists want it to predict. What things do you think atheists want science to be able to predict that it can't?
Science can't predict God because it's a mathematical formula and they just can't go out that far. Maybe I should rephrase it slightly. But I do feel a lot of atheists I know would be happy if they did prove a God through science.
Okay. You're talking to some atheists now. Okay. And we're part of a local group that has a lot of members, and we have a pretty good, clear idea of what a lot of atheists think on this particular subject, and I'm going to set you straight. Okay? Most atheists don't freaking care. Either way, we do not have a particular stake in proof of whether there is a God or not. We could be happy if there was a God, we could be happy if there wasn't a God, and whether there was proof either way. That's really not an issue for us, okay? What we care about when we make the decision that we don't believe in a God, we care whether it is proved now. And if you are agreeing that science cannot prove that there is a God, and by science I mean rational thought, evidence, experimentation, right? Actual physical, rational, logical proof. If you're saying that can't exist, we're going to be atheists forever.
Well, I'm not saying that can't exist. I'm saying it isn't proved at this point that I know of by science. But
then I'm going to go back to the very first thing you said, Steve. You said science can't prove things, predict things that atheists want science to be able to predict. What are those things?
Listen, don't get me on semantics here. What I meant to say to you was it's true that science can't predict that there's a God, and the atheists use that to say there's no God.
We use that to say we don't believe in one and that we have a darn good reason not to believe in one.
It's definitely... Sometimes, you have, I guess, a lack of faith, and faith is something that...
Of course we have a lack of faith. You know what Mark Twain said about faith? Mark Twain said...
Don't care.
Faith is believing in what you know ain't so. That's what Mark Twain said about faith.
Well, good for Mark Twain, but some people do have a faith, and when some people that don't have a faith will not be held to an accountability because they never had a faith, but you will be judged by your work. So I know y'all are probably good people.
Accountability to who or what?
Pardon me?
Accountability to who or what?
Well, I do believe that there will be a point in time when there will be accountability, and it's called a judgment to God. He's going to ask you why you didn't believe in him.
Do you have any evidence of this God? Why should we take your word to have any more meaning than anybody else's?
Well, because I'm telling you what the Bible says.
We don't freaking care what the Bible says. The Bible's a book.
Yeah,
There's lots of books.
We don't think the Bible has any special benefit over Alice in Wonderland.
That's your opinion. I don't not like you just because you don't believe in the Bible.
That is my opinion. You have your opinion. Now, why should I consider your opinion to be more defensible than mine? Your word, unfortunately, doesn't cut it. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know you personally, but your word just doesn't do it.
Denying existence of God just because I didn't know, but there is something that can happen even in atheist lives, that all of a sudden the light turns on and you just realize that there is a God. That's all I can tell you.
Steve, it's true. It is true. You're absolutely right. Some atheists have had religious experiences and converted. It's true. It happens. And you know what that means? Nothing. Because until one of those former atheists who has become a believer...
Let me tell you what it can mean.
Steve, I'm talking here.
Go ahead.
Until one of those atheists who has become a believer is able to produce evidence to prove that his newfound belief is accurate, it doesn't matter. It doesn't count for anything. It doesn't prove a darn thing.
Do you think that the Bible should
we're going to let you go now, Steve. We got a couple more callers and only 5 minutes left in the show.
All right.
Thanks very much. And I just want to point out for our viewers, once again, how long did it take for Steve to eventually come around to the threat? The big freaking threat of hell that is supposed to make us change our minds. You know what? You believers out there, don't waste your time threatening atheists with hell. We don't believe in hell, and we're just constantly annoyed by you people trying to push us around with this threat that you can't prove means anything. Just shut up about it. Okay, that was Steve. Sidney.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Sidney. Hey. Make it quick, please.
Okay, it just proves the last caller about what deists think about their religion or learning more about the religion. He said, don't know, don't care, and that's what they think. But my question is, as a single mom, I have a daughter, I'm an atheist, everyone, so I'm a pariah, especially in a black community. That makes me even more of an outcast.
It can be tough.
I was wondering if you guys had, family-friendly events that I could bring my daughter to.
All our events are family-friendly. We don't run around naked or drinking booze or anything like that you wouldn't want to bring your kids to. Not in our regularly scheduled events.
Oh, okay. So would I just find an order schedule on your website?
Yeah, there's all kinds of info on the website, www.atheist-community.org. And I want to remind you, after the show today, the crew is going to be meeting at...
Romeo.
No.
Threadgills.
Threadgills. That's 301 West Riverside. And any of our viewers of our show who would like to meet us there are welcome.
Okay, thank you guys. Good job.
Thanks for watching,
calling.
Sidney. Bye-bye. Woo! This has been rollicking. I enjoy the heck out of these shows where we get a bunch of calls.
Definitely.
So I see somebody else is on the line there being cycled through the call screener. Here's a little thing to mention in the last couple of seconds of our show. June 6th, 2006 is coming up.
Yeah.
You know how much that means? Nothing! You know how many times there's been a 6606 date since the year 1? 20 times. There's 10
different
for every
variations.
1,000 years.
Okay.
Yeah, because the year 6 had a 666, and the year 106 had a 6606, and the year 206 had a 6606, and the year 1006 had a 6606, and the year 1106 had a 6606. Doesn't mean freaking anything.
Just a numerical coincidence.
And yet there are people worried about their babies being like Satan.
Yeah, but I heard a couple of them are taking it pretty lightly. One of them planned on naming their son Damien. Just... Cool. That'll show them. Do we have another call before the end of the show? I guess there's a minute left. We've got Leah online.
We have Leah. Leah, hi.
Hey, you guys, I'm
30
here.
30 seconds. What can we do for you?
Oh, thanks. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about science because I love science, and to me, science is like magic. But one of the things that we have seen, throughout history is that we have consistently, as a species, gone through periods where we think we know everything, and then suddenly somebody will come along and they say, guys, it really is not the way that we think it is. It's this way. And so, for a long time there stoned or they're imprisoned or, hung or burned at the stake or whatever until, generally the masses will come around and they'll, start using new technology and they'll say, this guy was right.
Thank you very much for
there
your
were
call.
things that we didn't know and didn't understand.
We're going to have to let you go.
We were wrong.
15 seconds of the show.
Pardon me?